and welcome to today's webinar looking at digitize validation, how to budget and maximize your ROI. Before getting started, I do want to go through a few housekeeping notes. We do recommend that you use headphones or a headset to listen to the webinar, as we find that is the best sound quality. You are muted during the presentation, but we absolutely encourage questions and comments throughout. Feel free to submit those through the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel that populates on the right-hand side of your screen. You will receive a follow-up with a copy of the slides and the recording. You can expect to see that early next week. So feel free, however, if there are questions that come up before then, you can always reach out to us at info@kneat.com. And like I said, feel free to provide any feedback that you have from today's webinar. With that, I will pass it to the next slide. Just like I said, looking at today, how to budget and maximize ROI. We're joined by two presenters, one Kneat and one PCI, and I will get to that in a moment. But very quickly, we'll just put up our privacy statement on the next slide, or sorry, copyright and disclaimer statement. Just have to view that before getting started into the program. But with that, I will pass it over to introductions for our two speakers to introduce themselves to the audience. So first up, we have Derek Hughes.
Morning, afternoon, everyone. Derek Hughes, VP of Sales here at Kneat. I've been with Kneat for 6 years, driving digital validation in the life science arena. Prior to that, had about a 5-year stint at QMS software world. So definitely excited to talk to you about today's subject, which is how to get some budgeting to drive this type of solution. Justin.
Hey everyone, I'm Justin Blackwelder, Senior Manager of Project Services with PCI. I've been with the company for 13 years as of tomorrow, so happy anniversary to me. That's pretty cool. In my time here, I've done quite literally a little bit of everything. I started with our pipette lab, which today is a part of our metrology operations, before moving on to field services, where I specialized in thermal mapping validation studies, as well as analytical laboratory calibrations and qualifications. And at times supported our process calibration staff as well. In 2019, I moved over to our project services division, where I've been managing our consulting and commissioning qualification and validation staff. And finally, as you may have guessed, I'm the primary sponsor and champion for our partnership with Kneat, which is something I'm really proud of. We think Kneat is the kind of game-changing, market-disrupting platform that people will look back on in a few years and wonder how they ever managed to operate without it. So I'm looking forward to presenting along with Derek today to help all of you realize the benefits and return on investment for the platform. So back to you, Derek.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Derek and Justin. We're really looking forward to the insights you're going to share today. Just a quick overview of what today's program looks like. We'll do some basic company introductions. Then we're going to do a case study on looking how life science industry leaders Merck reduce production time and costs while using Kneat. Then Justin will take it over with looking at the positive effects of digital validation on resource management. Derek will go into how to budget for that digital validation piece. And then we'll also just do a quick note on how working with a Kneat certified implementation partner can help optimize your digital validation. And as mentioned at the top of the program, please submit questions throughout and we will save some time at the end to get to them. And with that, Derek, take it away.
Excellent. Awesome. So let's go ahead and get into, who is Kneat, right? Because if you haven't heard of us before, that's the first piece is kind of our origin story and what we're doing in the market, where we're headed in the market as well. So Kneat is the e-validation global leader for this digital journey. Our system, Kneat Gx, has transformed many organizations. Some of them also helped produce the vaccines during the COVID race. And so it's been a great journey to be with this company. We're now in 8 of the top 10. We're in 16 of the top 20. As I said, 3 of the 4 COVID vaccine manufacturers actually leverage Kneat to truly digitize and optimize their process. And we're now over, I think, 70 plus customers strong and counting. We also like to talk about the partners that we have as well. So we have over 50 partners, PCI being one of them and one of our strongest, our longest lasting partner, actually the first partner that we had. They helped us deploy at Biogen. And we have 50 other partners out there that have been certified on our platform. The reason why is the market is starting to see that, paper manual is not the way. It's not an evolution. It's not an advancement. It's just the old school mindset, right? And with our platform, it starts to transform a lot of organizations. The other piece of this that I like to talk about around who is Kneat and kind of our background that I'm proud of is we have 100% customer retention. What that means is the product not only does what it's supposed to do, it's easy to use, but we have a customer first mentality and values. The fact that we drive that across all of our employees, no matter what your role is, customers are first, that type of mentality allows our customers to truly feel comfortable with us, bring up topics, that might be hard to talk about, bring up different requests around the product. And that mindset has led us to have 100% customer retention, which in my opinion is very impressive. Our headquarters is based in Limerick, Ireland. We have remote offices all across North America, Europe, and also the Asia Pac region. Our system, as we get into it, you'll see that it is Part 11 and Annex 11 compliant. And of course, we are ISO certified as well. With that, I'll go ahead and jump it over to Justin.
Awesome, thanks, Derek. So PCI, we're coming up on 25 years in the industry, and we have become recognized as the industry leader in calibration services. Coast to coast, we're headquartered in Raleigh, but we perform the services from all the way out to Seattle. We've done some global projects as well. So from performing technical calibration and maintenance work for our clients to building world-class calibration, maintenance, and CQB programs, our clients capitalize on the benefits of service continuity from a single provider so that they can stay compliant and focus on their core business, avoiding strained resources and ineffective efforts to manage assets internally. At PCI, calibrations are performed by our highly technical CGMP, GLP trained personnel who are knowledgeable in quality guidelines enforced by the FDA, EPA, and ISO IEC 17025. In addition, our field technical staff, our consultants and engineers are experts at building regulatory compliant programs that are efficient and audit ready. And in addition to all those, as we previously mentioned, we partnered with Kneat to bring their powerful platform to you as one of their longest tenured implementation experts. Once you see what it can do and how it can improve your existing processes, we're fully capable of working alongside you and your organization, as well as Kneat to build the platform to work within your existing framework or from scratch. We'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the show, and we'll be open to questions as well. But for now, with that, we're on with the show. Back to you, Derek.
Thanks, Justin. All right, so the first piece that we're going to cover is customer results and case study. So the one thing that I will point out here is that Kneat produces many case studies with our clients because they're trying to help evolve this market, the life science world, right? We want to make sure that people understand that, hey, this isn't just a pilot, this isn't Kneat and we've never done it before. We work with, again, 8 of the top 10, 16 top 20, and a lot of the leaders in this space that have already driven towards digitalization. So with that, what we'll get into is the Merck case study. So Merck was doing a hybrid manual paper process before, like many life science organizations have, and the results were outstanding, just like we've seen with all of our clients that roll out Kneat. What we were able to do with them was we basically were able to roll out 7 validation processes harmonized across the entire globe for 27 manufacturing sites and across 2 divisions. What that did for them is they were able to receive a 50% cycle time reduction just by rolling out Kneat, generating of protocols, routing for reviews, routing for approvals, test execution, auto traceability matrix, post approval, right? All of those things that they were able to do in the Kneat system was able to produce a 50% cycle time. And I know a lot of people, when they hear it, especially from a salesperson, they always like, yeah, right. But this is from Merck, right? And many of our clients are producing similar results from an ROI perspective. The reason why is, again, as you guys probably know, I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, running paper back and forth, trying to find where it's at, trying to locate it for an auditor, who's got the document, where's the deviation, those type of things don't happen in Kneat, right? It's right in front of you. It's a digital platform that's in front of you. You know where everything is at all times. You have an oversight over your organization. It's really a no-brainer software. The other piece that they were able to produce was a 45% reduction of process steps. So again, all those steps that they have, because it was a manual process or a hybrid process, was eliminated by 45% because it's now automated. Kneat tries to drive that standardization, that harmonization that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. And because of that, they're able to absorb 3 different QMS systems that were doing that hybrid process, and it's now all controlled within Kneat. So it's a very big win for us, of course. And again, like I said, it's not just the Mercs, it's every company we work with is getting results like this because we're moving them from a paper or a hybrid approach and into a true digital solution. Here's a quote. I'm not going to read it off to you, but you will get the slides afterwards. I kind of highlighted a few things that kind of called out to me when I looked at this. Number one, what we always get for every demo, for every customer is ease of use and seamlessness. Because it's easy to use, because it's seamless, because it seems like people already know it as soon as they get into it, it's captured very quickly within the user groups. People start to use it very quickly. They start to realize the advantages, and then it's kind of a no-brainer, like I was saying, they don't want to go back to paper. The other piece is it's intuitive. We try to drive that intuitiveness through the application by doing a process called process mapping, where we take your paper hybrid process, we digitize it, and we make it as automated as possible, adding in values, adding in auto numbering, adding in things that can automate your documentation practices within the Kneat platform. The other piece that I added in there was, of course, looks and feels modern, right? The application looks like a modern application that you would see in today's world, right? We're not an old school application that kind of plugged on software here, plugged on software there, and still looks, you know, like that old clunky system. We are that modern technology. I kind of compare us to in 2007, you know, back in the day, we had our Nokia phones that you'd flip off the front pieces, and then guess what came out? The Apple product. And today, Apple runs the show, as we all know. So what are the positive effects of digital validation on resource management? The first key that I wanted to kind of call out here was, you know, Kneat is a platform. We're a solution called Kneat Gx that is a SaaS solution, software as a service. It's really a PaaS, platform as a service, because you get access to the full platform. But then what we do is we deploy the different processes, whether it be CSV, CQV, just regular equipment, changeover, batch records, logbooks, cleaning, tech transfers, you know, you name it, we got it. And basically we deploy your processes that may be paper, hybrid, and we automate them within the system. Everything is controlled in the system. Your templates are controlled and version controlled. Your test cases are version controlled and routed for review and approval and pre-approved. And then you have your entire workflows that you're going to build up between what is the status or what is the process for a Cat 4 modification? What documents need to be completed? Who completes them? What is the step for a requalification for this piece of equipment? Drive the end user through your standard documentation. Now, again, it doesn't have to be a perfect world where every site does the exact same thing. It'd be great if it was, but we all know that we're not there for everybody. So that's where you can have site-specific processes baked out. So in Tampa, down here with me, where we have the storms going on right now, you would have a certain workflow that would drive the documentation down here. Maybe up in Boston, my colleagues have a little bit different workflow. It's going to drive their standard workflow up there as well. That ease of use and that intuitiveness is, again, why we're so sticky within our organizations. The platform is built from Part 11 data integrity. It's built from the ground up for test execution, is why we've had so much success, because testing is the foundation of the system, and then everything is built around our data management tool. So being able to look and feel like you're in a document, but you're actually operating and creating dynamic data that then reports out to you in a very consumable fashion through BI, that's where our solution is changing the game in the market space. As I said at the beginning of the demo, what we try to focus on is standardizing and harmonizing as much as possible and driving that automation through your standard practices. Justin?
Thank you, Derek. So what I wanted to do today is to paint a very clear picture, using an example of how a customer of ours realized some very clear and immediate benefits from utilizing the Kneat platform. So this customer, they began utilizing a hosted version of Kneat, meaning that we set up a workspace for them where they could access it, review it, approve, retrieve documents while we performed all the CQB work on their behalf. The solution was so successful that as of this year, they have now implemented their own instance of Kneat and are now performing their own exercises within it. So for us and our partners at Kneat, this is the ultimate success story, right? A customer who got real world experience in the system, which was enough to encourage them to move in their own version of the program. So to give just a little bit of background, I think we're all familiar with performing CQV or really any type of work on paper. It's slow, it's manual. It requires a whole lot of resources. That could be from paper to ink to storage space. It's a really messy way to do something. It's a really messy way to do something that's really important, and that's never a good combination. So this client, they were growing rapidly and they needed a lot of new qualified cold storage, and they needed it fast. They simply were not going to have the capacity if they couldn't get freezers in the door and qualified in a hurry. Cold storage qualification is one of the simplest and easiest types of qualification activities. And despite that, the paper-based process was simply just too slow. So they called us in, we had a meeting, they had this growth that was on the horizon, and they came to us and asked a very simple question: how do we make this go faster? Luckily for them, we had a really good answer. So let's dig a little bit more into the why and the how of it all. So getting into the how, or the why rather, let's start with protocol review and approval. So logistically speaking, getting a document reviewed and approved often is the biggest bottleneck that we face, and you've probably seen the same in your own organizations. So in this instance, we were having to physically print control copies of our documents and then physically carry them from one person to another person to drive that review and approval process. Now, mind you, we're not an embedded source with this client, so we're not on site 100% of the time, nearly, but not quite. Now, for many of you, that won't be a problem, right? You're likely dedicated to a single site most of the time, but then you face the reverse issue, needing a signature from a contractor who isn't on your site 100% of the time, either as a document author or as an approver. Then from a collaboration standpoint, you may need 3 or 4 signatures to move a document forward, but maybe not all of those people are in the same office. Maybe they're not in the same building. With the virtual world, maybe they're not even in the same state. And if in those reviews, comments and corrections are needed, let's be real, there's always comments and corrections. Don't we all have a little PTSD from looking at binders full of sticky notes? Then that process starts all over. A single reviewer at a time, communication via less than ideal means with those sticky notes and those emails. Oh, Justin, I forgot something. Here's an email about it that's going to get lost in the 75 other emails you got since lunch. Are you guys getting 75 emails since lunch? Because I think that's the number that I'm getting just since starting this webinar. So how about supporting documentation? Manuals and SOPs, cut sheets, URS documents. Is that on the company's server? Which folder is it in? Who knows? Really, really hard to keep track of all those things when they're sitting in so many different places. Maybe one part of your organization keeps it stored one way, maybe another part of your organization keeps it stored in another. Tough to keep track of. So we already talked a little bit about those multiple handoffs and the required physical distance to get a document from one person to another. Well, once that document has left your hand, how do you know who has it? How do you know what the status of the review is? Have they made any comments? Have they even opened it? I guess it's back to an email or making a phone call, and all of my fellow millennials just heard make a phone call and they all shuddered. So accessing your documentation can be of critical importance, especially when you need it fast. It's awfully difficult to index critical documentation unless you literally have a librarian at your disposal who can find things quickly, and when that FDA inspector pops in for a surprise inspection, oof, that's tough. That's a really, really bad time to discover that a physical document has been lost and nobody can seem to track it down. It might be good for your cardio though. Look over there to the side. That's 70 calories from moving around the building frantically trying to find a document. That'll really get your heart pumping. How about execution? Paper is awful for data integrity. Did someone print this page? Did they make a mess of it and just print a new copy? Where's that legacy data that they threw away? Really, really challenging things to have performed via paper. And I know all of my quality staff is shaking their heads right now saying, yeah, these are all issues that we face. So all of these issues that I've listed on these previous 2 slides are logistical issues that create speed bumps along our way from start to finish. But they're also compliance issues. And one thing logistical and compliance issues have in common is that they have the ability to cost you a whole lot of time and money. If a document gets caught in a bottleneck at any of the points along the way that I pointed out, that's a quantifiable loss. A loss of time, which invariably is a loss in money. If that cold chamber isn't ready because a document got buried on someone's desk, my client either can't accept more samples or they have to pay to send it somewhere else that does. That diminishes their bottom line, and a lot of those little delays can add up. So how many samples can a cold chamber hold? A few hundred, 1,000, more? All those dollars are adding up. And what about when a regulatory agency walks in? Do those few extra minutes spent finding a binder get them wondering how organized you really are? Does a lost binder or two for a critical system get you on the road to a warning letter or even a 483? How much is that going to cost you in internal or contract labor to correct after the fact? You can literally watch your revenues and margins getting smaller and smaller with each incident. Now, a lot of you are thinking, come on, Justin, there's other electronic document review and approval platforms. Get real, this is 2022. And you know what, you're not wrong. There are other platforms that will do that. With those systems, you still have to pull that physical document out. You still have to execute it on paper. You got to return it, approve it, scan it. None of this is self-contained. It's still going out into the world, and it's hard to track. Never is it all in one place from the entire process, start to finish. Kneat addresses all of these problems. The document is written, reviewed, commented, approved, executed, post-approved. All associated documents are kept within the system. The data proves that this eliminated those speed bumps and saves you money and makes your systems more efficient. Next slide, please, Derek. Okay, so one last slide on cost, and it's one that many don't really think of. It's inventory management. So once a document's approved, for most, it's out of sight, out of mind, right? We don't think about it anymore. But from producing to storing a document, there are soft costs associated with that. Print, scan, copy equipment, and supplies like ink, toner, paper. Not only do you have to purchase those supplies, you also have to dispose of it. And in the case of controlled documents, that can be an expensive proposition with third-party disposal costs. Plus the maintenance and upkeep of the equipment that is necessary to produce those documents and then get them back into a digitized format. Finally, storing your documentation. Maybe you're storing your completed documents digitally, but many are still storing physical documents. Some of you may have actual warehouses that they themselves can be qualified in such a way to store those documents safely. You know what a warehouse costs? It can be a whole lot, and someone has to manage that space for you, whether it be on site or whether it be a third-party organization tasked with managing your most critical documentation. Now, maybe you're small. Maybe your document storage is only a room, but that room still costs money and doesn't make you a dime. That's wasted space that eats away at your bottom line. And even if your final version is digitized, there's the matter of securely storing a document while it's still in progress. So meaning between that pre-approval and post-approval stage, somebody still has to manage that document physically. That requires personnel, requires space, and that all comes with a cost. All right, so I've spent the last several minutes describing every nightmare scenario that kinks up your operations and ends up costing significant resources and hampers your ability to be both operationally and cost efficient. The problems I've chosen to highlight today are some of the issues that plague the client that I previously mentioned that came to us seeking to improve their document turnaround time. They were small, but they were growing very rapidly, and they could see that these problems are going to hamper them in the future. They were printing controlled documents on paper. They were routing these documents in serial for hand signatures. We were executing those documents by hand and then going back to the same process for post-approval, including signatures from people from both organizations, which created a very significant slowdown. In terms of storage, this particular client was physically storing copies while counting on us to utilize our systems to store digital copies. This led to them frequently reaching out to us for copies of documentation. All of these things are just lots of slowdowns, lots of speed bumps along the way. Luckily, we had the solution through Kneat. We had at that time recently begun working with them, and when we sat down with the client to discuss options, that light bulb went off. We knew exactly how to address these problems, so we set about building a workspace for the client and the PCI implementation of Kneat. This would grant them access to all of their documents where they could review and approve and ultimately search and access all their documents in one place. With this effort, we set out to address a handful of places that we identified as areas of need to speed up the overall process. So through the platform, we simplified protocol generation. With Kneat's templating module, we could reliably produce the same document over and over with things like model and serial number automatically pre-populated. Creating a document and getting it into the client's hands for review suddenly took minutes instead of hours or days. Faster protocol review and approval. With its ability to have real-time collaborative reviews, e-signatures, and digital notification of progress, review times dropped significantly. Leveraging existing documentation. Kneat allows for upload of existing documents to create digitized versions, making creating templates a cinch. Really is easy as uploading that document, making a few formatting changes, and you're good to go. So if you've got those documents that exist already, you don't have to reinvent the wheel just to get them into Kneat. Faster and more compliant test execution. Kneat has been shown to decrease documentation errors and get the test-ready document into the hands of the engineer faster. All of that was demonstrated in the example that Derek provided earlier with Merck. And because all external documents are uploaded and stored to Kneat, it's always secure and it's always in one place. Reduced overall validation cycle times. And this is achieved through the simplified and streamlined document production and execution. We'll discuss those overall results in just a moment. But there's no document manual handling. All of the documentation was digitized within the platform. Reduction of deviations. Fewer errors meant overall fewer deviation reports were getting generated from simple mistakes like protocol generation errors and documentation errors. Improved reporting. The client could see at any given point where their document was in progress through pre and post approval. Who's it waiting on an approval from? They can see that. Who still needs to review it? They can see that. Where is it in the execution phase? They can go in and look. It's all available, and they can generate reports that provide the kind of data that they can provide to their own upper management, saying here's where everything is. Improved audit preparedness. Documents can be easily searched and indexed by a system number. It's literally as easy as typing in a search bar. Improved storage. All documents are in one place with no printing or scanning required. Eliminates all those things that we mentioned earlier. And greater team collaboration and visibility. All the stakeholders had visibility to the entire process. So what were the results? Well, they were wildly successful. We were able to reduce the labor effort from an average of 26 hours to just 9. That is a massive decrease in effort required to push a single chamber through the process. With these new efficiencies, we were able to go from qualifying only 6 chambers per month to 26 in just our first month with the system with this client. This resulted in the client spending less money per chamber while increasing their own capacity to manage their own clients. So not only did they cut costs, they got ahead of schedule and increased their top line growth months ahead of time. This is just one example, right, of how the platform took a simple process that had needless hurdles to clear, removed those hurdles, and helped the client achieve above expectations. Because of that, that client is still a client today. They're continuing to add equipment, and we're continuing to support them in the same way. And because they saw how the Kneat platform can improve their business, they are now also a client of Kneat's, demonstrating firsthand how our partnership is helping life sciences clients around the world achieve their goals with targeted efficiency. So now I'm sure after having heard all that, you're ready to hear more about how you can get ready to utilize Kneat to improve your own business. So here's Derek to tell you more.
Thanks, Justin. Excellent. All right, so now let's get into how to budget for digital validation. So budgeting can be one of the most challenging components of getting a digital validation solution, as I'm sure a lot of you can attest to. On average, large pharma companies typically spend 3% of revenue on IT projects. This is a significant amount and sometimes doesn't even include key solutions like digital validations that solves a big problem in life sciences. Getting rid of paper, adding compliance, adding efficiencies, right? That should be the goal, that continuous improvement that we all learned about years and years ago. But roughly 75% of major IT projects fail to reach anticipated benefits and also suffers from budget overruns. Part of that problem is you spend all this time deploying a solution that's supposed to save the world and all this good stuff, and it takes over 2 years to deploy, and it doesn't ever really bring the full ROI. With Kneat, it's a 12 to 16 week rollout, right, from kickoff to go live, and you're getting the ROI within that first year. So that's what I mean by a common sense or a must-have solution with the Kneat Gx system. The trend to apply new technologies to old problems has a bottleneck effect, right? Decision makers. That's usually where it happens. The users, the general people that know they need it, they know they need it now, but it comes down to really the wallet holders and the decision makers. And with so many computer systems and technologies being considered to solve problems, to try to do something better in the organization, it allows those decision makers to kind of put a halt in it, because they kind of have that fatigue of always getting asked for a new system. Don't we already have something? Why do you need more funding? We're already using a DMS system. Why do we need a digital validation system? Because they don't know the true problem and the pain. Senior leaders and budget holders need to know the answer to these questions, right? It's our job to be able to champion them. It's our job to be able to illustrate to them those pains and what's out there. And it's also our job to be able to show them what our peer organizations are, because every company wants to be the leader in their space. They want to be revolutionary. The only way to do that is to be able to see where people are headed, know where you came from, and make sure you're following in a similar path of the innovators. And on this slide, basically, if we fail to answer these questions, the projects fail, right? Before they even begin, before you even say, hey, I want to, they stop it right there. This is key to building a great business justification to address those questions. And Kneat has templates. We have past examples that clients have used to be able to easily get the budget for this. Because again, it's not a huge cost at all. You're probably spending more on Iron Mountain and other systems just to store documentation. So it's definitely worth looking at the ROI, and that's what we're going to see throughout these next slides. So of course, the first piece is how do we achieve budget approval, right? Many of you attending today may be experienced in the budget request and the approval process. But no matter how experienced you are, project fundamentals are the primary determining factors for budget approval and success. Alone, a budget document will not garner continued support, right? You have to continuously enable what you're trying to drive here. You have to continuously have discussions because you don't want to lose that budget. Budget depends on how effective the business case is, ongoing internal project promotion, the right vendor and solution, of course, the internal project team, making sure they're ready to go. Everybody's got to be motivated. And of course, approval and implementation approach that's been scaled across the globe. And then, of course, the last piece that you always have to continuously get is the buy-in, right? You always have to drive the buy-in, not just the users, not just middle management, not just the administrators and the system owners, but also senior leadership. They have to understand that what's happening now cannot be a solution. It has to evolve. It has to become better. So at a high level, the path to a budget success does not just end on the approval stage. That's kind of what I was going over, particularly for large scale global projects like Merck, as we discussed earlier. Results from phase 1 may require continuous justification and release of additional budget. Similar budgets are continuously subject to change as well. So a result of a company performance and forecasts and financial leadership seeking to balance expenses, et cetera, to make sure they hit business targets, that can affect projects. So how do we identify appropriate budget, acquire approval, and keep the budget safe from cutbacks? Easy enough, right? We've come up with 10 commandments of budgeting. So I'm going to walk you through all 10 of these at a very high level. And then, of course, we'll have the Q&A here in about 10 minutes. So the first is thou shalt understand the company's budget process. So all budget process, as we all know, are not made equal. They vary from company to company. What time of year? Is it calendar, fiscal? Who are the budget holders? When are the budgets submitted and approved? When should justification begin? Where does the budget come from? CapEx, OpEx? Gathering as much information as you can about your organization budgeting process will help you drive that type of initiative. Also, look out for peers, right? Some peers you may have there within your organization may have gone through this, may have just went through it. Leverage them for that capability and that kind of background knowledge as well. The second commandment is thou shalt clearly define project objectives and scope. So with project objectives, what you plan to achieve by the end of that project, right? They're the best place to start because they act as a North Star so that when you're getting there, you know exactly where you're headed. The best objectives are clearly defined so you can use them as the benchmark to measure success as well. And to write clear objectives, you can use the SMART methodology, which is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. It's critical that any goal that you set for the implementation for the digital validation are tied to known business objectives and KPIs, particularly those associated with production and revenue creating functions for the business. This increases your chance of getting that budget approval, which is very easy to tie to. We've done it time and time and again. Our clients consistently show a crazy ROI by implementing a very easy solution like Kneat. And then once you've set your objectives, you'll need to determine the scope of work required to achieve those goals. Your project scope sets boundaries for your project. It will also help to identify available resources, time restrictions, and what is outside the scope so that you don't have scope creep as well. All right, number 3, thou shalt identify stakeholders and apply a communication plan. So your project and your budget are collective tasks that involve the engagement of stakeholders from the project's operational team, as well as, most importantly, your key decision makers. When dealing with large number of stakeholders for a budget or a project, it's critical to identify who they are, what they need to know about the project, and why they need to know that. Typically, decision-making stakeholders for life science IT projects include CEOs and COOs, which are the corporate leadership, your CFO from a financial leadership standpoint, your CIO, which is typically the IT system leadership owner, right? Somebody under them will own the system. And then you have QA and engineering, which is the validation leadership, right? So from a project delivery standpoint, the group expands greatly to include line management, process leads, project management, end users, et cetera. And so that's what this is kind of depicting within these slides. To overcome the challenges, use a communication matrix. So this is a great way to be able to leverage different things to communicate out, making sure everybody's getting the right touch points, making sure some people don't get overwhelmed to where they're like, this is too much. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to identify and communicate their relationships to the budget and certain deliverables. It allows you to see how frequently you should contact them. It allows you to see who they report to as well. Accountability, of course, and then it also drives their priority to be informed on key milestones and their preferred method of communication. This type of matrix is a great way to help drive that communication strategy across the board. So stakeholders' interest versus messaging, right? So we've listed some of the key interests of common stakeholders for digital validation projects and the things they need to know. These are questions and ideas that can leverage as we provide you with these slides at the end of the presentation, so feel free to leverage them as well. So the communication objective should always be around acquiring and maintaining buy-in from the decision makers. No matter what, you always have to make sure you're getting buy-in, you're making sure you're gaining the success of the budget, and you're driving the success of the project. So the fourth here is thou shalt find a vendor and a solution that's proven and trusted. So not all vendors are created equally, as we all know. It's critical that you build a good foundation with the vendor, not just a simple demo, do a workshop, as I call, do the test drive, right? Any salesperson in an organization should be able to demo a product, but really do a test drive, do a deep dive, see if it actually does what it's supposed to, click on the buttons, make sure it operates as you see intended, and find that vendor that's out there. Kneat is now trusted, as I said, by 8 of the top 10, 16 of the top 20, and there's a reason that we have 100% customer retention. It doesn't mean that we're perfect by any means necessary, we're not, but we have a very good product, we have very good people behind us, and that is a key to a great partnership with a vendor like Kneat. So on this side, these customers' results were founded by independent analysis conducted by our customers and published by customers in case studies about their implementation of Kneat. So you can see here, and again, you'll get the slides afterwards, but it's going through some of those case studies, like the reduction of changeover time by more than 85%, right? So you're affecting the bottom line in that organization now, or the reduction in the validation life cycle by more than 50%. Down here in the bottom right, you can see that this was one of our partners that leveraged the platform themselves to deploy an SAP project, or excuse me, an ERP project. And you can see they saved 0.81 million US dollars. So 800,000 US dollars. And that was actually started in March of 2020, which we all know what happens then. So imagine if they didn't have this platform, what would have happened with that project? It would have gone on forever. Who's got the documents now? It wouldn't have happened like it would if they didn't have Kneat. 5, thou shalt build a business case that aligns to the business objectives. So we clearly understand the challenges we face in a paper-based validation environment, from the physical challenges of paper to the data integrity risk and the compliance risk and the inefficiencies that that creates. But does the number of binders you need to carry into an audit or the expense of shipping a protocol to another site for review and approval really resonate with senior leadership? The cold hard truth is often the validation is perceived as a cost center in a revenue-focused organization. So how do you break through that noise? And that's what we're going to work through in the business case. And again, we have templates. You don't have to come up with something creative on your own. That's what we're here for. That's what we do in and day out. So demonstrating the value, right? It's important that you are able to come across and demonstrate the value of the solution. You know, validation is a cost center, as it says here. So you want to help increase efficiency through this demonstration. You want to show how the validation cost is reduced. You want to show how the time to market is sped up, right? And how ultimately you're getting a true ROI. Every software company is going to try to sell, no matter what you're selling, is going to try to sell on the value. That's what you're taught as a salesperson early on. Sell the value, sell the value. Show them the ROI. Well, I can't tell you how many times I've showed the ROI and it's kind of there, but with Kneat, the ROI is in your face. It's proven time and again. And it's just when customers have that light bulb effect that they start to see the true value in a solution like Kneat. Here's again some of those case studies. We'll make sure to provide you guys with these so you can have them. I want to make sure we save enough time at the end for Q&A. But again, you can see all the awesome case studies that we've had. AbbVie was actually one that was conducted side by side against our main competitor. And we actually, I think it was a 50% more efficiency gain, or 40% more efficiency gain, excuse me, than our competitor doing the exact same thing. So that's showing that Kneat is truly that global e-validation leader in the marketplace. 6, thou shalt make informed cost calculations and add contingencies. This is where you're going to build out all of those calculations within there. And again, we have all the documentation to help you guys out with. That's a part of our job to help you build out those cost calculations and of course the contingencies within there as well. When estimating project budgets, be as thorough as possible by creating as detailed breakdown of your costs as possible. So how long it, like you saw with Justin, how long it takes you to walk there, the cost of printing, the cost of toner, all of those calculations help give you estimates of your true costs currently, and then you can compare them to the KPIs that you gather once you deploy Kneat. 7 and 8, thou shalt pick a time to request budget carefully, and thou shalt use it or risk losing it. So in these commandments, with commandments 7 and 8 are self-explanatory, but don't underestimate them and their importance. Firstly, finding the right moment to propose a digital validation project and its associated costs should be chosen carefully, right? We should have probably done it last year if we want something this year. Well, ahead of budget season, you need to ensure that you have the buy-in. So you need to make sure that people have seen a demo, they understand the value. This should happen a long time before you're even requesting budget. Otherwise, again, you're at risk of losing that budget. And 9 and 10, thou shalt stick to the project plan, timelines, and budget, and thou shalt promote the project's value to all stakeholders long after implementation. Finally, it's critical to deliver the project on time, to scope and budget, and be sure to promote the project's value to all stakeholders long after implementation, because now you have this great software, it's ready to go, but now you got to start using it, right? You got to take off the training wheels and start rolling down the street. It's easy to say, you might think, but this again ties back to your vendor selection. If you have a vendor that has a proven methodology, they will be able to help you, guide you through that hypercare process. They'll help you get your people trained up, and they'll make sure that you have success. Kneat focuses on customer first, like I said in a couple of the first slides. So we have both an account manager program who focuses on helping you scale, strategic positioning, etc. And you also have your customer success manager who's there for technical process questions making sure you're trained up, making sure you have the right people. With those two teams together working with you, we've seen a great success with our customers. And now we're going to go on to the Kneat and the PCI partnership, and then we'll get into Q&A, and we're right at 1:46, so we have 14 minutes. So there are different levels of partners and different levels of partnership, as you can see here. It ranges from technology partner to knowledge partner to the academy specialist to program specialist to the implementation partner and service partner. The last one, excuse me, the platform partner. That's where they actually leverage the platform themselves. So we have different levels of classes. And now I'm going to hand it over to Justin, and he's going to talk about our existing relationship that we've had since 2013, 14, 2013 or 2014. So it's been a long journey. Justin?
Yeah, it has been. We've been with you guys for a long time, and like I mentioned earlier, you know, it's a platform that we truly believe in. We wouldn't be here doing this with you today if we didn't. So, you know, not only are we, you know, we an implementation partner, but we're also a user of Kneat. So we exist in both ways. We're both a customer and a partner. We've seen the benefits of it, and you know, now that you have as well, hopefully you're ready to get going on your own implementation. And that being the case, PCI and Kneat, we're here to help you. As Derek previously mentioned, we're the oldest implementation partner with Kneat, meaning that we have just a tremendous amount of expertise and experience to help get you started. We can take your existing practices and your existing processes and implement them from within Kneat, or we can build you an entirely new one from scratch. It doesn't matter. We're partners with you, along with Kneat. All together, we're going to put together something that's going to be best in class system for you to utilize. But you know what, if you're not quite ready for that and just need a smaller bit of help to kind of help get you started before you move on to that implementation of your own, you know, we can help that with leveraging a hosted solution like the client that I mentioned before and how they started out. Either way, you know, eventually once you have that instance and you have Kneat, it's implemented, it's there, it's ready for you to use. You know, and Kneat is done. PCI will stay with you along the way. We'll stay with you to help you develop your workflows, build your document templates, and a whole lot more. So we're very capable. We're very we've gone through all the certifications with Kneat. We have super users. We had the first super user in the world at that time. So PCI is prepared to partner with you to make sure that you get exactly what you're looking for, and you know, to realize those costs and that return on investment. Derek, any more you want to add?
Nope, nothing on my side. Madison, I know we wanted to open it up for a Q&A, and we have about 11 minutes left before people have to jump.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you so much for your insights on just kind of seeing the value and return on investment of using a digital solution and how to kind of take some of those first steps, which actually leads me right into the first question. Derek, I'm sure you get this all the time, but when should a company actually start the process of budgeting for a solution like Kneat?
Yeah, so timing wise, yesterday, right? So there's never an early enough time to start budgeting, because you know, if you try now, it could get rejected, and now we're into the next year, right? So now we're in 2024 before you even deploy. So for me, it's always looking at let's get the process started now. It's never too early. There's never a bad time to throw out good ideas to make your company more efficient and more compliant. And we have all the tools set. In a realistic world, if you're in a calendar year to year, then you know, the budgets are getting set now. If not, they were set last month, and then they're going through the SLT approvals now, and by the end of September, you know, October, November time, you got your budget. So a lot of people, I would say, budgeting now would probably start for you next year if you haven't already started. So we can definitely help with that. Like I said, we have the business justifications to kind of prove that ROI out to your senior leaders.
Perfect. Thank you so much. As I get to, I'll leave a bit of time for questions to come in, but as I wait for some additional questions, I did want to just remind people that today's webinar was recorded. So those slides and the whole presentation will be sent out. You can expect that early next week from us. So just if you did want to go back and reference, any of the 10 commandments of budgeting, or any of the kind of data that Justin was able to go through in terms of really kind of measuring that impact and return on investment of making a decision to move forward with companies like Kneat and PCI. As we do, wait for some additional questions to come in, I don't know if there's any closing remarks or things that you would want to maybe leave, Justin or Derek, or anything that you would maybe want to share that maybe hasn't been covered yet.
Justin, I'll let you go first.
Sure. So the example that I shared of our client, that's just one example, right? So that was a very small client who was growing very quickly, and for them, budgeting and making decisions for a small company can be a lot easier than maybe some of your larger organizations. But that said, Derek also shared an example of from Merck. So I wanted to highlight the idea that this is not this is only for the Biogens and Lillies of the world. This can absolutely be a solution for your smaller startup pharma companies as well, especially ones that they don't have a lot that has already in place. So by putting in a system like Kneat into place, it kind of forces you into a compliant state from the get-go, instead of starting and trying and going, oh, we didn't really do this right, let's backtrack and start over. For a smaller company, Kneat, I have found with a lot of our other clients is very affordable, and the dividends pay out very quickly.
Really good advice.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Justin. I mean, just to kind of pile on there, we have customers that are less than 100 employees, all the way up to hundreds of thousands of employees, right? Or hundreds of thousands of employees. So it's one of those things where it's a very scalable product. It can be built for one site. It can be built for 100 sites. It can be built for a global process and some site processes over here. We have all the combinations, and the key to the platform and kind of getting that ROI is again, I keep saying platform. If you keep hearing that from me, it is a platform. It's just that we don't sell these modules that you have to pay all this extra software and add-ons for. We sell licenses to the platform. So what I always tell all of my clients is sweat the asset, right? You bought the platform. Maybe you did CQV first, and then you're doing CSV, and you kind of think that's the end of the road. It's not. There's logbooks, there's batch record, there's GMP forms, there's training forms. The sky's the limit really with this system. That's why I joined Kneat. The light bulb went off for me very quickly, because I was selling modules in the QMS world. People could only buy 2 or 3, right? And then when I saw that you could buy this platform and get rid of all this paper that's still in life sciences, we're looking at molecules and making life-saving vaccines and all this crazy stuff, but we're still pushing paper in life sciences. To me, it's crazy. So I would just say sweat the asset, and that's the power of the platform. Looks like we've got some questions coming in.
Yeah, we do. So for a small company where major validation is maybe not the norm, maintenance of a qualified state is actually the main thing. How does Kneat help in that regard?
Sorry, one sec. I was just trying to look at the question myself.
Yeah.
Can you read it off one more time?
For sure. So for a small company where major validation is not a norm, and it's actually the maintenance of qualified state is the main thing they're focusing on, how does Kneat help in that regard?
Yeah, so like Justin was saying, if validation isn't the key part, there's still some type of qualification and test execution, and there's still documentation, right? So you can control all of those processes within Kneat. It may just be one process, but it could be a huge impact to your organization. But I always love to question all of my prospects and customers and say, where else can you see this fitting? If you have to review, if you have to approve, if you have to do test execution, if you have to post-approve, and you're doing all that in a manual paper process, there's a value there. And I think we've seen that across the board with our clients. The other piece is with our partners, they have prepackaged, sorry, Justin, they have prepackaged content, right? So you could leverage their tools and what they've built up to get you kind of that head start as well. Go ahead, Justin, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So to your point, yeah, I've seen clients use this in other ways than just CQV, right? I think we kind of get pigeonholed in this idea like, oh, this is CQV software, and not at all. We've We've seen it, for SOPs. We've seen it for change management. I've even seen it for budgeting and quoting as well, for some organizations. So, it's really only limited by your imagination, by what kind of controlled documentation that you would want to put in there. And to Derek's second point, the idea that implementation partners such as BCI, we do have canned documents that we can help to supply you with to get started, right? If you're looking at a blank slate and not understanding how are we going to do this, that's why partners like PCI exist in Kneat, so that we can help you. We can help you get going.
Yeah, I think there was even a customer of ours that like use it for approving marketing assets, like during the pandemic, just because it is such a versatile tool that way, right? So it's like, as you said, the sky's the limit here of how you kind of want to utilize. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Well, I don't see any more questions coming in right now, and I see we're about 3 minutes from the top of the hour. If you want to just quickly go to the next slide for just some contact information. Like I said, an email will be followed up early next week with all of the recordings and slides and additional resources. However, if you do want to get in contact specifically with someone from Kneat or PCI, you can always head out to our websites for more information on either of the companies. We're obviously always happy to talk to different companies from that mid-market all the way up to the big enterprise companies. There's always an opportunity to talk validation and beyond between both of us. So with that, thank you so much, Justin and Derek, for sharing your insights today. And thank you everyone on the line for tuning in to today's webinar. We will be in touch shortly and hope to see you on the next Kneat webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, folks.